She can sleep with a man she doesn't love, but she only submits her soul to the one she does. And if you're not that man, every affection you're getting is a performance, a transaction, or a delay tactic. This video tears open the mask, revealing 6 things women do only for the men they truly love, not the ones they tolerate, use, or test. Behind the emotional confusion lies a brutal, Stoic truth. Love is not expressed through words. It's shown in the small sacrifices women make when their ego surrenders to your masculine frame. To see these signs, you must reclaim emotional control, detach from fantasy, and understand female psychology at the root. Because once you chase love, she'll withhold it. So now the question burns. Has any woman ever loved you in silence? Or have you just been enough to keep around? Point number 1, she softens without a fight. Have you ever held a woman close and felt like the hug was a lie? Like her arms were around you, but her mind was already somewhere else, measuring, comparing, deciding? Most men never speak about it, but they feel it. That split-second hesitation before she pulls you in, the stiffness in her shoulders, the way she exhales like she's tired of pretending. You tell yourself it's nothing. You want to believe she's just had a long day. But deep down, you know, every hug is a test, and most men fail it by clinging harder. She softens without a fight. That's the truth. But here's the dagger. If she doesn't soften around you, you were never her piece to begin with. You were her placeholder. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." You think she's pulling away? You think you're losing her. But that fear isn't hers, it's yours. You've handed her your frame, your stillness, your worth, all for the illusion of closeness. That is not strength. That is self-betrayal. A Stoic once walked calmly through a burning city, unmoved by the chaos because he had already detached from what could be lost. His peace wasn't in the buildings, it was in his control over reaction. Now imagine this. You sense her affection fading. She hugs you like a stranger, but instead of panicking, proving, pleasing, you remain still. That's Stoic detachment. That's masculine control. You've already accepted the loss before it happens, and because of that, you are free. Female psychology isn't about words. It's about tension, energy, who breaks first. She withdraws to see if you'll chase. She hugs you halfway to see if you'll lean the rest. She gives less love to see if you'll overgive. And most men, untrained in emotional discipline, crumble at the first sign of emotional starvation. They beg, they question, they bleed their value trying to be chosen. But a man who knows his value doesn't audition for peace. He becomes it. In relationship power dynamics, whoever reacts first loses control. A man who responds to emotional coldness with silence, not resentment, not punishment, but composed indifference, breaks the cycle of manipulation. He is no longer her mirror, he becomes her contrast. So the next time she hugs you and you feel the test in her body, pause, feel the urge to ask what's wrong, and let it pass. That is Stoic silence. That is the beginning of power. Ask yourself this. Can you hold her without needing her to feel anything back? Now let's go deeper, because when a woman defends you in rooms you're not in, it's not love, it's loyalty. And most men never experience that either. Point number 2. She defends you in rooms you're not in. Have you ever wondered what she says about you when you're not there? Not to your face, but behind it. To her friends, her family, her exes, her coworkers. You'll never hear those words. But those words define your worth to her more than anything she says in your presence. Because love is easy when it's convenient. Loyalty only shows up in your absence. A woman can hold your hand in public and humiliate you in private. She can smile in your face and shame your name the second you walk away. Most men never know. They feel the shift but can't prove it. And so silently, they begin to rot inside, sensing that the woman they protect would never protect them in return. Marcus Aurelius said, "If someone does wrong, it's because they believe it right. Teach them or bear it." But with women, this teaching isn't verbal. It's behavioral. You don't instruct her to be loyal. You observe if she already is. Because once you ask for respect, you've already lost it. The Stoics never demanded honor. They lived in a way that made dishonor impossible. And when it came, they did not cling, they walked away. That's masculine control. That's the quiet edge most modern men have lost. You see, in ancient Rome, to speak wrongly of a man without evidence was seen as a stain on your own integrity. Today, female psychology rewards doublespeak, praising you in private, belittling you in her group chat, testing your masculinity through passive sabotage. And still, men chase. They defend themselves like boys. They try to earn back what should never have been risked. But a man who moves with emotional discipline never fights for space in anyone's mouth. He lets reputation echo or die on its own. If she's truly yours, if she truly respects your frame, she will defend your name when you're not around to see it. She will shut down disrespect, not for your ego, but for hers. Because the moment she lets others question you, she's quietly agreed with them. In relationship power dynamics, absence is the true mirror. When you're not in the room, what part of you does she carry forward? Your strength or your weakness? If her loyalty evaporates the second you're gone, then you were never her man. You were just a man in her life. Stoic detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. You don't need to monitor her words, you need to monitor your value as a man. Is your presence enough to command her defense? Or does she only guard what she fears losing? So here's your challenge. Stop asking if she loves you. Ask if she protects your name when there's nothing to gain. Now watch closely, because when a woman fears losing your presence, not your money, your status or your attention, but you, that's when love starts to reveal itself without words. Point number 3. She fears losing your presence, not just your provision. Have you ever felt like you were only as valuable to her as what you could give? Not your presence, not your essence, just your utility, your wallet, your protection, your attention. And deep down, didn't it hollow you out? Like you were a product she liked, but could replace the moment the packaging wore down? Most men are silently haunted by this question. Would she still want me if I lost everything? Not just money or status, but the ability to provide, to lead, to give. And when you ask that question, you already know the answer. Because her fear isn't losing you, it's losing access to what you give her. Your presence? That's just background noise to her strategy. But real love, the rare kind that Stoicism speaks to, doesn't fear the loss of benefit. It fears the loss of the man. And if she doesn't fear your absence, you were never the center, just a satellite in her orbit. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And that suffering begins when we build identity on being needed, not valued. Provision can be replaced. Presence cannot. When your presence commands emotional gravity, when your silence carries more weight than her arguments, then you become irreplaceable. Not because of what you offer, but because of what you are. The Stoics understood this distinction. They gave when it aligned with virtue, not out of fear of being discarded. Picture this, a Roman general, stripped of his title, wealth gone, betrayed by allies, yet still honored by those who felt his being. Not just his status. That is the goal. To build yourself into something so complete that your energy alone creates stability. Female psychology, in its darker games, conditions men to believe that provision equals worth, that without your output you're disposable, that emotional discipline is cold and sacrificing yourself is love. But a man of value knows better. He doesn't confuse being used with being chosen. He studies relationship power dynamics and sees where the line breaks. So here's the reality. If she fears losing your car, your income, your lifestyle, but not your presence, then she's in love with what you bring, not who you are. And the man who needs to be needed? He's already lost his frame. To reclaim that frame, practice Stoic detachment. Visualize her leaving, feel the ache, then remove the fear. What remains is your true self, unshaken, full, untouchable. So ask yourself, if you stopped giving, who would still stay and why? Because the next shift is deeper. When a woman truly loves a man, she doesn't wait for permission. She submits emotionally before he ever takes the lead physically, and that is the line where power begins. Point number 4. She submits emotionally before you lead physically. Have you ever felt like you were leading but she wasn't following? Like you were giving direction, offering stability, even trying to protect her, but something in her spirit resisted. Passive defiance, silent tension. She let you touch her body but never touched you with trust. And you tried harder, didn't you? You thought maybe if you became more of a man, she'd finally let you in. But here's the cruel truth most men never speak. A woman can surrender her body while her heart stays armored. And if you don't know how to recognize the difference, you'll mistake access for intimacy and spend your life leading someone who resents being led. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." That's not just about you, that's about her too. If she hasn't submitted to your presence, if she hasn't chosen to soften before you ever made a move, then her body is just performing. Stoic silence teaches us this. Real leadership isn't taken, it's given. And if you have to convince her to follow, then you're already out of frame. In Stoic Rome, a man did not chase authority. He radiated presence until others willingly aligned. That's masculine control. That's the kind of gravity a woman feels deep in her nervous system, not through words, but through her own inability to resist relaxing around you. This is where female psychology cuts deeper than most men realize. Because when a woman loves, she surrenders without instruction. She begins to crave your direction, not because you demanded it, but because your stillness makes her chaos feel safe. But modern men, drained by rejection, inflamed by confusion, try to earn that surrender. They explain themselves, they argue their worth, they plead for softness, and they violate the very core of emotional discipline, because the moment you need her submission, you lose the power she would have freely given. Here's the brutal edge of relationship power dynamics. A woman doesn't submit when she's told to. She submits when she feels safer in your world than in her own mind. That's when she starts opening up without being asked. That's when she drops the emotional weapons, stops testing and starts trusting. And if that never happens, you're not her man. You're just her temporary escape. So sit with this. If your leadership requires pressure, manipulation, or over-explaining, it's not leadership, it's negotiation. And a woman who must be convinced to follow is already planning to leave. Train yourself in stoic detachment. Lead yourself first. Let her feel the difference between a man who wants her to follow and one who doesn't need her to. Then ask this: has she ever submitted emotionally before you laid a single hand on her? Now watch closely, because when a woman truly loves, she'll cut off every option around her without you even asking. That's the next layer of truth. Point number 5. She cuts off options without being asked. Have you ever looked into her eyes and wondered, am I the only one? Not just physically, but emotionally, energetically, soulfully. You might never catch her texting another man. You might never see the flirting, the digital winks, the carefully curated exits she keeps open, but you can feel it. A subtle hesitation when you speak, a certain delay when you reach for her. And the worst part? You don't know if you're paranoid or being played. Here's the quiet agony most men carry. She'll never say she's still open to other options, but her actions whisper it. She keeps exes as friends, followers as attention reserves, and emotional bridges half built, just in case you fail to meet the fantasy she hasn't even told you she has. That's not love. That's leverage. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In the face of emotional ambiguity, the Stoic response is not confrontation, it's clarity. Not in her, in you. Because if she hasn't cut off her options without you asking, it means she's not all in. She's weighing her odds. And that's where a man must exercise the highest form of Stoic detachment, the courage to let her go. Not because she cheated, but because she never fully chose. In ancient Rome, loyalty wasn't proven through grand speeches. It was seen in quiet allegiance. A soldier didn't need to swear an oath twice, and a woman who truly values a man doesn't wait to be told to close the door. Behind her, she slams it shut on her own, not for validation, not for control, but because the very thought of entertaining another man feels like spiritual treason. Modern female psychology, twisted by infinite choice and social media supply, conditions many women to keep men as maybes. She'll post for attention, accept compliments, entertain orbiters, then tell you it's harmless. But every time she does, she's communicating one thing: you are not enough to silence the world outside her. But here's where masculine control changes everything. The man of value doesn't beg for loyalty. He doesn't scroll through her likes or interrogate her texts. He simply observes. He sees whether she moves like a woman who's already committed, or like one who's just performing monogamy until something shinier appears. And when he sees the truth, he acts. Not emotionally, not loudly, just decisively. Emotional discipline means understanding this. If loyalty must be requested, it was never real. And if she only closes doors under pressure, she was planning to keep them cracked open. So here's your inner challenge. Can you walk away from a woman who won't cut off her options, even when you love her deeply? Because in the final shift, When a woman truly fears losing you, she no longer competes with you. She no longer tries to win. She starts to seek one thing only: peace in your presence, not power over your life. Point number 6, she seeks peace with you, not power over you. Have you ever felt like you were sleeping next to your opponent? Like the woman in your bed wasn't looking for peace. She was looking for control, not through violence, through emotion, through silence, withdrawal, subtle guilt, confusion, just enough to keep you chasing her mood instead of leading your life. And you start to lose yourself, slowly, quietly, not because she hates you, but because she needs to win. Most men don't realize this until it's too late. Some women don't want partnership, they want power. They'll test your patience, disrespect your boundaries, weaponize their vulnerability, just to see if they can pull you off center. And when you react, when you break your stillness, that's when she knows she's won. But Epictetus said it best: no one is free who is not master of himself. A man who can't control his inner world will always be ruled by hers. And this is where the Stoic man separates himself. He doesn't fight for dominance. He doesn't argue for peace. He simply remains unmoved. He becomes peace, and in doing so, he forces a choice: submit to the calm, or get left behind in the storm. In the ancient world, a Stoic wasn't measured by how loud he spoke, but by how little he reacted. He could walk into chaos and remain whole. That's masculine control. That's the gravity that breaks emotional warfare without throwing a single word. And here's the twist: when a woman truly loves a man, when she respects him at the level of spirit, not just status, she stops fighting. Not because she loses, but because she feels safe losing her armor. Female psychology is built around testing for strength. Not physical, emotional. She doesn't care if you can lift a weight. She wants to know if you can carry her. Uncertainty without flinching. And the moment she feels that, the war ends. She stops trying to gain the upper hand. She starts seeking shelter in your presence. Not control, not leverage, just rest. But that shift only happens when you stop engaging the games, when you reclaim emotional discipline, when you let her moods pass through you without reaction, when you remain stoic, silent, unshaken, not out of coldness but out of strength. Because in the end, the man who doesn't chase peace from her creates peace for both. So ask yourself with brutal honesty: has she softened into your silence? Or does she only feel powerful when you react? Because when a woman seeks peace with you, she's already surrendered the need to win. And that's not just love, it's reverence. And now we close the loop. Because the man who sees these signs doesn't beg for love. He doesn't chase clarity. He becomes it. What she does or doesn't do no longer defines him. That's the final shift. The man who needs nothing, loses nothing. The man who is whole, walks away untouched. Now pause. Let every point burn in your chest. She softens without a fight, but only when your presence makes her drop the war. She defends you when you're not around, because real loyalty doesn't perform, it protects. She fears losing you, not what you give, because your essence carries more weight than any provision. She submits emotionally before the physical ever begins, because your stillness commands surrender, not demands it. She cuts off every option without being asked, because no other man even exists in her mind. And finally, she seeks peace with you, not power over you. That's when the war ends. That's when the woman becomes still. Now ask yourself, have you ever been loved like this? Or have you been chasing shadows, confusing attention for devotion, and tolerating tests that a man of value would never entertain? These aren't just signs. They're thresholds, and crossing them requires a brutal kind of honesty, a stoic kind of strength. Most men will never feel these 6 truths, not because they don't deserve love, but because they've never become the kind of man a woman chooses to love like this. Become him. That means mastering your emotional control, reclaiming your masculine frame, and walking through this world with the stoic detachment that makes her either rise or disappear. Subscribe to Stoic Truth, where the silence cuts deeper than the noise, and where broken men come to rebuild through discipline, detachment, and unshakable clarity. You're not here to be understood. You're here to be undeniable. And it starts with knowing what love really looks like, when it's real, and when it's not. This is Stoic Truth, and now you know.